Are you a
things
big
happen.
say like numerology, but that kind of stuff, that kind of astral kind of stuff?
Well, I mean, like, what do you mean by that?
Like
Ask your question in a
not
different way, and then you shall receive
not
your
not
answer.
not necessarily like horoscope wise, but
Yeah,
more
no.
like kind of like because I don't know anything about that either, but more like spiritual kind of
Yeah, I'm
things. You know what I
very,
mean?
very religious and spiritual.
Okay.
Um, it impacts our everyday life.
Where did that come from? If you don't mind expanding on it a little bit.
Oh, boy. Okay, we're going back
Take
10
take me
years now.
back, man. Take me
So
back.
in high school, okay, so I was raised in an American Protestant Methodist church. It wasn't anything crazy. It wasn't like, speaking in tongues. It wasn't any of the Mormon stuff. It was pretty normal, average Protestant Christianity with no crazy beliefs. Average.
Mhm.
Wasn't a mega church. It was a small church. And sort of how I was raised. But I never felt like a connection to God. I never felt like super religious or anything like that. And then in like my freshman or sophomore year, I find out that my dad somehow spoke to the Dalai Lama for like a day and a
Whoa.
half. And they had like a wonderful conversation about life. And it seemed to me that my dad may have actually been a Buddhist at heart, and my mom was the Protestant Christian.
Mhm.
My dad gave me books written by the Dalai Lama, and I read them, and I claim to be a Buddhist and follow Buddhism and all that. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't really know if I was truly like Buddhist.
Mhm.
I mean, I meditated, and said mantras and stuff like that. I have a Buddhist tattoo on my shoulder, and so I was always like really spiritual, and I always sought something out there. And then, I get older, I go off and I join the Navy, and I have all these experiences in the Navy. Your listeners don't know this yet, probably, unless they've heard me on one of the other podcasts, but
Right,
I
right,
broke
right.
my back in the Navy.
Mhm.
That's a whole ordeal. And essentially, after that, I became very agnostic. Like, I knew there was something out there, but
That's kind of where I'm at right now, to be honest with you. More
but I
more
had
agnostic, yeah.
I had no idea what it was, because I still felt all that spirituality from my Christian upbringing, and then the Buddhism in high school and college part one in the Navy, and then I just felt like there was like an empty hole. And a couple of years passed, and I decided to go back to church. And I'm trying to find a church because I'm like, something's got to click.
Right.
I'd either be the youngest person at the church, or it'd be like too crazy or too.
To like not showboaty, but you know what I'm saying? Like showy, like
So I'm a musician.
okay.
I make records. I put on a performance.
Too performative maybe is the word.
Yeah, so I went to this one church. It's the Woodlands Church. I'll even call it out. I don't even give a shit. This blew my mind and broke my heart at the same time.
Oh no.
They told the story of David and Goliath. And at the very end of the service, they're like, you know what our Goliath is? We need to raise $5 million for soccer fields for young adult men and women so that they can play soccer.
The business aspect of
And
it.
I'm like, $5 million for a soccer field? That's like a small stadium.
That's insane.
Yeah. And I'm like, 5 million buckaroonies?
That's a lot,
Okay. And they're like, we're passing out baskets for you to donate
bro.
cash and checks. And then you can also donate via the QR code on the screen. And then the QR code on that screen over there is for your stocks and your bonds. And I'm like, you can donate your 401 fucking K to this church
That's our Goliath is crazy.
to use David and Goliath as a story to get your stocks and bonds and part of, your grandkids' inheritance.
Jesus
Yeah, I
Christ.
was shocked. On top of that,
That is heartbreaking.
I did some work for Live Nation for a while.
Live
Doing stage,
Nation.
yeah, doing stage rigging like at White Oak and
Oh shit.
713.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. A lot of the tours have like 4x4 squares for LED walls, and that's what you see back there. These
Mhm.
LED walls, but they're movable, they're collapsible because you got to put these on semi trucks and send
Yeah,
them
move
out.
them around. Yeah.
Excuse me. This church had a permanently installed LED wall built into the fucking church.
Jesus.
And if it wasn't permanent, it was a temporary one that had been bolted
It
together
was
and
sturdy.
made permanent.
It was sturdy.
It cost a lot of money. And on
Oh my
top of
god.
that, they had an LED floor.
Is this the dude that like wouldn't like? Is this fucking Joe Osteen or whatever his name is?
No, no, this is some other guy. I don't know who it is. This is the Woodlands Church. I think it's Carrie Shook.
I know who you're talking
I
about,
think I
dude.
think
Oh
that's the
look,
guy. You
we
can't quote me on that. I
we
could be wrong.
we have the internet, bro.
Oh my god, yeah, Woodlands Church. It's on like off of 242 in the Woodlands.
The Woodlands Church. I don't want to see the guy, man.
Yeah, and
Is it that Kane looking guy where he's bald and shit?
yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
it is him, bro.
Yeah.
Carrie and Chris Shook.
My god, yeah, and it broke my heart. And so they had an LED floor, like you could walk on it and everything. And so how I went to the church in the first place was I was working at Guitar Center and made friends with this one guy who was buying like Gibson SGs and
Mm.
vintage tube amps and stuff. And I like vintage tube amps and SGs and stuff. So I'm talking with him and we actually became friends. And he's like, yeah, I play professionally at the Woodlands Church. I play guitar there. I was like, oh, cool. And he's like, yeah, you should come check it out. And I was like, okay, cool. He's like, yeah, yeah. After the service is over, just come up and I'll show you all my gear that I use. And I'm like, oh, cool. So after the service was over, I can go up to the stage and each one of these players is playing professional grade equipment.
Oh man.
He's rocking that Gibson SG and he's got like a $4,000 pedal board and a $2,000 tube amp
This is
and
expensive, bro.
the LED floor. The drums like some half Ludwig, half Tama with Sabian and Zildjian crashes and rides,
Jesus.
and the bass player's playing a vintage Fender P bass,
If you had to add up all the equipment on the stage, what do you reckon?
including the stage lighting.
Yeah.
$6 million,
For
5
real?
million
Holy
bucks.
fuck. I guess yeah, the stage
Yeah,
and shit
so
like that.
on top of that, I have an associate's degree in live entertainment
Mm.
technology, and I had to take tons of lighting, tons of troubleshooting for lighting and audio systems, audio. There was millions of dollars worth of equipment and lighting and audio in this arena, this miniature arena.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was almost like
This isn't an auditorium. This is a fucking, you know what I mean? This is a huge.
I mean, it had auditorium seating. It wasn't, I mean, they could have upgraded that. I mean, you could get probably, leather recliners at that point, tax write off, dude. If Carrie Shook's listening,
I
leather
closed them out,
recliners.
but yeah.
leather recliners, bro. But yeah, all that
I
stuff.
think his name's Chris though.
Chris Shook?
I think Carrie's his wife, no?
Carrie?
It says Carrie and Chris.
Apparently, my mom went to high school with him.
What?
I think he's like my uncle's age.
What kind of font is that? Jesus.
I don't know. I can't read it.
Carrie and Chris Shook. I bet he's Chris Shook. She's
Oh,
Carrie?
maybe.
Maybe the opposite way, who knows?
But yeah, all that stuff turned me
I'm
off.
looking at it right now. Holy fuck.
Turned me off from American Christianity and all the Protestantism and all that. And
The business aspect of it.
it was the business aspect, the idea that not anybody could agree on anything. Churches were splitting up left and right. Like the United Methodist Church was the church that I had, grown up in, and they couldn't even decide on the whole gay marriage thing. And they split into two different churches because they couldn't agree on gay marriage.
They
They're
just separated.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, you can do that. And I was just like, all right, something is missing because I still felt that agnostic hole in my life. And I was so upset about like stocks and bonds. Really?
Mm.
Cool. And I was like, all right, what's the oldest church out there? And it's like the Orthodox Church. I was like, okay, cool. And it was so weird. I knew about this Orthodox church for a while, and I knew exactly where it was because I had driven past it like every day to go to band practice with, the old lineup.
Mhm.
And I knew it was there. And I was like, yeah, whenever I go to church again, I'll check out that Orthodox church. Well, out of all the days, I had this insomnia episode where I just could not sleep.
Mm.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to church because it was a Saturday night. And it was like Sunday morning at like 3 a.m. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go to church in the morning. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to go. And I'm gonna go to that Orthodox church. I'm gonna see what's up because they're not like Catholics, and you don't have to, you know, worry. I know you're
Oh no,
Catholic,
it's all
but
good, dude.
you don't have
I'm
to worry
very,
about the whole child touching
yeah, yeah. We don't
thing.
have to worry about
And
like pastors getting relocated and shit like that.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. I've never heard of a Greek Orthodox monk getting locked up for
Oh,
child
that's
touching.
so yeah. No, that's one of the reasons why I'm like more agnostic, to be honest with you, of anything.
Yeah, so I'm like, I'll check out this Greek church,
Hmm.
and I drive down there, and I expect to just walk in and just be totally lost, and nobody's gonna help me. And I walk in, and they're like, "Hey, how's it going? You're new here. Like, do you know like what's up?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've just sort of wanted to come to an Orthodox service and see what was going on." And they're like, "Okay, cool, yeah. So, if you walk down there, we're gonna send someone out there to sort of walk you through the service."
Mm.
And so this dude about my age, his name's Ethan, came up to me and he's like, "Hey man, I'm Ethan, and yeah, this shit can be kind of weird." And that was exactly what he said to me. And he's like, "Just play along and everything will be cool." I'm like, "Okay, dude." So I went through the whole motions of the service.
What year would this be, if you don't
This
mind
was
me
last year.
asking?
This was
Last year.
June.
Okay. Okay.
This was 9 months ago.
Coming up on a
Like
year. Coming up on a
almost to the
year.
day. Like tomorrow will have made 9 months exactly.
Okay.
June 23rd. Fucking remember the day. Because it was Pentecost Sunday in the Orthodox Church where the Holy Spirit comes down into the apostles after the resurrection.
Mm.
And it was weird because it was that morning at 3 a.m. where a lot of Christians would say the Holy Spirit came down on me and told me to go to church. And after that service, I went and spoke to the deacon for like 2 hours about all my problems with Christianity.
Wow.
Everything about the stocks and
Yeah,
bonds
everything about
shit,
the yeah.
everything that I had believed about Christianity and everything had been taught wrong, in my
Mm.
opinion. Because for 2,000 years, there has been a consistent church in Greece and Syria, Palestine, Russia until the 1900s when the Soviets killed them all and burned down the churches and monasteries. That's a different story. But yeah, they survived Soviet persecution. Like Vladimir Putin's a Christian.
Jeez.
Um, but all throughout the East, there's Orthodox Christianity that's been unchanged, literally unchanged for 1,300 years. And only the changes were slightly altered over 700 years, with the first like changes only happening in like 380 for like slight words
Mm.
to make sure that everybody was on the same page about slight words. And that was all they fought about. But they would always come together and agree on stuff. And then in 1054, the Pope, after like 200 years of arguing with the rest of the patriarchs in the East, he's like, "Yeah, I want all the power because I'm in
Mm.
Rome.
Mm.
I'm the seed of Saint Peter. I am the Pope. I am infallible. And I am above all the other bishops." And all the other bishops were like, "No, you're not, dude. That's not fair."
Very elitist of Mr. Pope.
Yeah, so then the Pope is like, "Yeah, well, guess what? You all are all out of the church." And they're like, "How can you kick the rest of us out of the church? In fact, we kicked you out of the church."
Hmm.
And that's how the Roman Catholic Church became. So
Ah.
technically, the Eastern Orthodox Church is a relatively recent term, um, because up until 1054, it was just the church,
It was his church.
just the church,
Mm.
one cohesive unit. And it wasn't until the Pope wanted all the power, and
Here's where things kind of, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Again, the
yeah,
separation kind of thing. What the hell?
yeah. So then the Catholics branch out from the other patriarchs of the church, and that church continues on in this present day.
Mm.
And there's one right down the road from your
Yeah.
place.
Apparently, there's one like super close to me.
Yeah, I didn't even know until I drove by here. I'm like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, I saw the cross because the cross is different than
Hmm.
other crosses."
How are you liking it so far, man?
My life has changed. Like I said, I was completely agnostic and I
Mhm.
had no idea what the fuck was going on. And now I have
A path.
a path. And on top of that, there's so much mysticism within Eastern Orthodoxy that is not touched upon at all in Protestantism. And people would be like, "That's heresy. You can't talk about that." Or, I mean, like the whole thing about giants and archaeology and all that.
Mm.
Like you see so many people saying, "Oh, there's no giants in archaeology. There's never been on Earth giants. That's just not true." Well, Yeah, it's not true. There've never been, 12-foot tall giant humans,
Right, right. Just walking around.
half god. That's actually a translation problem.
Mm.
The giant the There's a lot more to it, but giant is essentially, it means a different thing in the ancient Aramaic. It essentially means someone evil.
Like a giant, like almost like
Yeah,
a yeah.
giant. Like, it wasn't ginormous, it was
Mhm.
giant, evil.
Big evil.
So the Goliath giant, going back to the David and
Yeah, yeah,
Goliath
yeah.
thing, in the ancient Hebrew that it was written in, it claims that he was like 9 feet tall. Which is, that's kind of tall
That's yeah.
for ancient. But if you read the ancient Greek,
He could dunk.
yeah, the ancient Greek says that he's only 6.5 feet tall. So if you read in ancient Hebrew is a lot harder to read numbers because the numbers are like vowels, and the vowels can
Mm.
also mean a word.
Holy shit.
So like whenever you're reading numbers in Hebrew, it's really
Tricky.
tricky. But in Greek, it's a lot more cut and dry. So in Greek, it says that he's 6.5 feet tall. So 6.5 feet tall would be a tall, strong
Very
spec
real
ops
yeah.
warrior in the
Mhm.
ancient Bronze Age. And it's not really out of the question because the average height was like 5.5 feet
Back then,
tall.
especially,
I mean,
yeah.
5.5 feet tall was tall in the Bronze Age.
Mhm.
So if a dude with gigantism in the Bronze Age, yeah, he'd probably be 6.5 feet tall. And that checks out from a scientific standpoint and everything.
From a logic, yeah,
Yeah.
everything.
But all that translation stuff is
There's where everything
lost.
gets messed up.
Yeah. And then people will die by the fact that giants existed. The world's 6,000 years old. Like, even like the oldest church, the Orthodox Church, teaches that you don't know how old everything
Yeah.
is. At the beginning of my study Bible, it states that, all of the saints and the church fathers believe that Genesis is just it's should all be taken metaphorically
Mm.
because it's an Iron Age book written about prehistoric times in the Bronze Age. So you've got tons of time separated. And you got to think of everything from a metaphorical and a spiritual sense for the first 5 books of the Old Testament. In fact, every priest or father I've talked to about all this just says to the beginning Christian or the person truly interested in what Christianity truly is, skip the Old Testament. Just go straight to the Gospels and just read the New Testament and go
Mhm.
from there because then you'll understand more about what it's like to be a Christian.
It'd be better like a comprehension for them to just to skip that aspect of it.
Yeah, because then you go back to the Old Testament and then you read everything and it's like, oh, so Jesus sort of did away with all of this Levitical law, which is where people get the idea that homosexuality is a sin and stuff like that.
Mhm.
The whole idea about sin in the first place is wrong because sin is not some sort of justice or judicial system, and sin is not a crime.
Mhm.
Sin is rather illness inside of you,
You're within yourself.
within yourself. The things that eat you, your regret, that's sin. The things that you've done to hurt other people also hurt yourself. That is an illness within you. That is sin.
Like acts of malice and shit like that.
Yeah, that's sinful. So, whenever you start thinking about sin as an illness, a behavioral illness from within you, and you start trying to lead a sinless life like Christ, and you stop thinking about it as, I'm going to get punished for this in the afterlife, things just start falling into place.
Mm.
And it's just an easier lifestyle. And I think that's why it works for like Buddhist monks because they live the same sort of lifestyle. I mean, even if you don't buy into the whole religion and spirituality part of it, there's a lot of Eastern like spiritual thought like within Hinduism and Buddhism that's also reflected in Christianity. Um, the best atheists I know are closer to real Christians than the people that I know for a fact go to church every Sunday in like some of these Protestant churches.
Damn, that's interesting.
Some of my best friends are atheists and agnostic, and they've treated me better with more respect and dignity than some of my Christian friends.
Damn.
And that's the sad truth. Except for, like, within, like, my Orthodox church that I go to
Yeah,
and all
right,
the
right,
friends
right.
I've
Yeah,
made there,
exactly.
my god, like, the atheists and the Orthodox are almost the same
Mhm.
in that regard with the respect and treatment of humanity.
If I could ask you, how do you feel when you saw one aspect with like money wise,
Yeah.
religion being used in that aspect, but
Mhm.
when it's used to like for control, not necessarily like holy wars and shit like that, but just like very like
Megadeth.
what do you think about that, man?
What
It's
do you
used
mean?
as it's used as a tool to like get
Yeah.
things done in terms of like power things.
Yeah. So, what do you mean? Of course.
I'm saying, how do you feel about it though? Is there like some conflict there? Is it come like just kind
It's
of
evil. It's
yeah,
of the devil, as one would say. I
right,
mean,
right, right.
it's not good. I mean, it's evil. Any sort of control. I mean, the whole idea about free will is we can choose to do good and we can choose to do evil. What do you want to do with your life?
Mhm.
I mean, that's like my whole thing, you know?
Yeah, choices at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I do get bummed out because I have like family members who are super like they're not really like they're on their good behavior wise, you know what I'm saying? They go to church, they like take care of their family, they make sure everything is like in line. They don't really do wrong on anyone, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And then when you see like these other figures that are representing that religion kind of like just do all this evil shit, it's kind of like
Yeah. No, it's
it puts like a bad taste in your mouth, you know what I mean? Because it's like Jesus, this is
mhm.
like is this a business at the end of the day? Is this just like a power kind of like scaling kind of thing?
Back when I was very agnostic, I thought about opening my own church. I was just
Yeah.
like, dude, fuck it. I'm gonna tax write-offs. I can get a worship
Oh
band. I
man.
can get all the, JBL Vertex systems I
Hmm.
want for redonkulous. I mean, like,
It's such an interesting thing,
yeah,
man.
you can make millions of dollars in that. But at the end of the day, you'd have people that are devoted to you, and then you'd have the people that see you for what you really are, and that's a piece of shit.